Theory. Oh my goodness. Yay, it's
All
working.
right, all right.
Okay, so we've
We
been
got a
gone for
5 minute cue.
3 weeks. There's good reason for that. He abandoned ship for 2 weeks. He went off to go play with lizards somewhere, I bet.
Yes,
Um,
lizards are very cool animals. And then
yes.
Zach was on vacation.
Yeah, and then I was
Yeah,
on vacation
vacation.
the third week, so we had 3 weeks of just kind of not doing that. Plus, I was finishing up something pretty major that we'll get to later on in the show.
Right. So we've been taking a break, but we're back now to
But we're no
continue.
longer going to promise weekly. We're just going to say next time because sometimes there's no news, and sometimes Jacob goes home, and sometimes I'm in San Antonio. I don't know. Those are just the three things I came up to. All
Well,
right.
we should be more regular when school starts.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
mostly every week.
Um.
But we're not gonna promise every
Yeah.
single week
But
ever.
sometimes things happen, you know.
Yep.
So yeah.
Without notice too, because I forgot that he was going to be gone and I was finishing a project at the same. Anyways.
Anyway, so we've been gone for a few weeks. Not much has been going on, but we do need to mention one big news item from the past month, which is that composer Oliver Newson died about 2 weeks ago. Um, Oliver Newson for is it Nussin or Newson?
I believe it's Newsom.
It's Newson. Um, was a composer from the United Kingdom. Um, very well known. If you haven't heard of him, he's someone to check out. He was also very well known as a conductor and very beloved by the ensembles he worked with. A major figure in contemporary music. So if you haven't checked him out, go do that. And R.I.P. and my condolences to his family and of course all the people in the music world who um, Um,
No, you
yeah.
read the next one. I need to type this out.
And continuing, this has uh, happened last week. The 2018-19 Copeland House Residency Awards were announced. This is another, residency for composers, and the composers awarded were Michael Brown, Kei Chia-Chen, Andrea Clearfield, Michael Fede, Michael Gilbertson, Huck Hodge, Benjamin Krause, Remy Leboeuf, Zebukle, Martinitke, I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly, Paula Matthewson, Justin Merritt, and Greg Wrighton. Um, you can look at this information. Well, actually, the page on the Copeland House Residency Awards site about this was missing when I looked, so it's probably just a momentary blip.
Yeah,
but there's articles about it on New Music Box and
again, composition websites are never good. They all suck. I maintain this.
And Zach, you want to talk about this next one because you discovered this.
Yes, I'm
I
typing
already
live
posted
now.
on Facebook.
Well, I'm posting again because
Okay.
I'm more important than you. Well, on my Facebook wall.
Oh, you're on your Facebook page.
Yeah. I don't care about. I don't care how you post it. Anyways, so I discovered a new resource today. So first of all, what is the resource? It is the McLaren Journal, and if I can just pull it up here. Yes, the right one. Woo! Technology works. So McLaren Journal is an online magazine with emphasis on music education, performance, and technology. It's been around since early 2017, so it's at like a year and a third right now, as long as it's been alive. And the purpose is to serve as an educational resource and provides readers the voice. So this is something that I want to call it up and coming because because right now it's still kind of a one man act or one woman act at this point, but she does cover some really neat stuff. So if I just go to home, you can see I'll scroll back up to the top in a minute. But it's interesting stuff like, okay, what is an ocarina?
Gamers will find that interesting.
Even if you're not a gamer, everyone
Even
knows
if
what
you're not
ocarina.
Ocarina.
Come on. And then you've got, weren't you got the marble machine? That was cool. I remember when that popped up all over the place. Drum corps, like a bunch of interesting stuff. It's relatively new, so this is a cool new resource. I'm going to be using it. But the reason I discovered it is because my friend and colleague here, Chelsea Williamson, I'm still not sure how I like that picture. We're just gonna. But and not because of her, but just because I feel like the lighting was okay. Anyways, but yeah, she did a nice little composer spotlight on her because I believe they were colleagues at one point, and basically Chelsea, obviously McLaren is big in the band world, band education particularly, and Chelsea Williamson's specialty is well, band and music education. So it made perfect sense because Chelsea is very good at writing for band, particularly in the educational side. I think her ideal target audience, I think she said, is like high school. I could be wrong
Mm-hmm.
about that, but I believe that's her target audience. And she does excessively well for it. It's the world that she was born to live in, pretty much. But yeah, so I'm really glad that she had this spotlight on her. And this is another thing that shows, hey, those connections from like 2 degrees ago, they do still matter as long as you make them matter. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the person that you sat next to in college algebra, probably not important.
You never know, though. I mean,
In
I'm a
general.
big believer in interdisciplinary stuff, and that you never know what
Well,
connections are going to matter.
oh, I'm the
So,
king of interdisciplinary. What are you
so,
talking
so,
about?
I mean, who knows? The guy who sat next to you in college algebra maybe goes on and becomes a filmmaker.
I mean, I do have an
And
architect that wants to design a concert.
um, you're you're gonna go the Wagner route, aren't
No,
you?
what we said is basically if either of us wins the lottery, because he likes sound acoustics. This is a small sidebar, but it's
Right.
worth it. His big thing is he likes the architectural acoustics and all that, and he actually really wants to someday design like a main stage concert hall.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've both said that if either of us like wins a significant lottery or sum of money from something, that we're going to establish a school of music and we're going to make an endowed chair with me as, composition, and he is going to be the sole designer with his name on the concert hall because he really wants to design one, and I personally am a fan of his work. Right now, he's actually designing a lot of I didn't know that they do this, but in large cities, have you ever wondered how they get the cell phone signal around
Mm,
efficiently?
okay.
Turns out
Yeah.
that they have miniature towers that have
Okay.
to be designed into the buildings. He's
Right.
been designing those
Oh,
in Kansas
that's
City and
interesting.
Chicago. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. He was doing that for
Mm-hmm.
like 2 years. Now he's doing something else. But yeah, it's really interesting. This kind of stuff that you have to do with architecture. Anyways, so that was my small sidebar, but also proves interdisciplinary stuff. It is a thing. It is
Woohoo.
a good thing. And plus, I'm like the emperor of interdisciplinary stuff. Oh well. So either way, new resource, and also kind of plugs the whole track of your old colleagues. One of them might turn out to be useful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't keep track of non-useful. You get the idea. All right, moving on.
All right. BBC Proms is going on now. Um, you probably know what
I
the
mean, not
BBC
right
Proms is.
now. I
Yes.
think they just closed. Like, I mean,
No,
like this second.
it goes through August.
No, no, I mean like
And
it
so,
closed right now, like time wise in the day.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they're got concert not
yeah,
now,
they're
but
closed for the night.
this month, through July and August and early September. And BBC
Yeah.
Proms, really really good festival. I really want to go there someday. They do and there's always premieres that go on at BBC Proms. And there have been several premieres already. I'm just going to list some composers that have had works performed. Anna Meredith, Ben Foster, David Bruce, Ian Farrington, Caroline
Come on,
Shaw,
she's like your favorite composer to talk about, and you can't say her name.
George Friedrich Haas, Hannah Kendall, Isabel Mundry, Luca Francioni, uh, Eric Esenvalds, and Eve Risser. All of these recordings of these premieres and all the BBC Proms performances are up on the BBC Proms website for a limited time, and you can go listen to them. So if you're interested in any of these composers and want to check their music out or any of the other stuff that they played at the BBC Proms, I think they did a full performance of Pelléas and Melisande, the Debussy opera, which is awesome. So go check it out.
Yeah,
Um,
honestly though, I would prefer Tanglewood personally, out of like
mhm.
because I'm more kind of like I guess of the Americana genre.
When is Tanglewood? Is that happening now?
I guess normally in August. I would have to double check, but
We,
yeah.
we maybe we might have to talk about that next week and what's been performed because I would imagine they put at least some of their
Oh,
yeah. So Tanglewood's happening too, and I mean summer is really festivals are happening all over the place. So,
But none of them as fake as last summer's infamous thing in Boston.
there was just another one of those that happened.
Not nearly as bad.
I'm not sure if it was. I don't know if it was like classical music or if it was. Yeah, I don't remember.
It was folk music.
I saw something on the internet where someone else did this.
There was a folk music festival where basically it was someone took out like the city park or something, and like they got a bunch of kind of be like
I mean, if
that's
he's a
what I understand.
Good guitar player.
Well, I know, but whenever you're promised, oh yes, it's a festival, not just
Festival
a solo
of one.
Yeah, exactly. But none as infamous as last year's thing. Knock on wood, summer's not over yet. But
yeah. But no, BBC Proms is legit.
No, I know it's legit.
and unless the British government runs out of money, it will continue to be legit. So, anyway, I'm gonna skip to recordings so we have things.
Yeah, keep going.
We're gonna premieres, and there will continue to be more premieres at proms. So keep up on it. There's also a great website. There's a new music blog called 5 Against 4, spelled out 5:4. That's just a guy who likes to write about new music, and he always reviews all the.
Don't be
premieres.
This guy.
So
you don't want to be that guy, Paul Van Engel.
Yeah, that was it. That was a few. So
it was a shit show.
So I'm gonna give a plug to that website because it's a cool place and a good place to find new music. But yeah, check these out. I'm in the recordings world. So, new album. The album is called Jeff Young and Paul Pinto, Patriots. Run for public office on a platform of swift and righteous immigration reform, lots of jobs, and a healthy environment. An opera by Paul Pinto and Jeffrey Young.
That was quite the mouthful to say.
This is a real album. You can find it on Bandcamp. It's from the artist collective Thing NY. Y standing for New York.
See, this is where I think about Dr. Vanderberg's talk from a couple of years ago about searchability. How searchable is, for instance, for us, our composer websites? How searchable is that album title? No, seriously, like at a certain point, no one's gonna be able to look
point where I didn't even like type it into the document we use as like our notes during this thing. I just copied and pasted from the New York Times article where
I'll be honest, this part I skimmed over and I actually thought it was just like names up to healthy environment.
Yeah. You haven't listened to this, have you?
No, I haven't.
It's only 25 minutes long. I bring it up here because it's just really weird. And I think it's worth note because of how bizarre it is. And I'm not really going to say anything more about it. Go listen to it. You might not want to listen to the whole thing. It depends on your taste in music and or humor. But like I feel like it's worth just for it being this going and looking it up.
Yeah. Something else. Speaking of looking up, I just got on that quick spiel about Paul Van Engelen. Guess what I just found out?
What?
He had his name legally changed.
Well, I don't blame the poor guy.
The poor guy.
Well, I mean,
how can you take pity on that? That's like taking pity on Al Capone.
Al Capone was a human. I mean, Paul Van Engelen, we're all human beings, and I believe that empathy is not a virtue that should be restricted to good, quote unquote, good people.
No, I agree, but like, I don't know, agree to disagree. Like, he deserves to not work in music ever again.
Probably not. But I like the bad guys. I mean, my favorite movie is In Bruges, by Martin McDonagh. Like, it's a movie about two hitmen, and
I can see your point, but still.
I mean, yes, it was. I'm not going to come down and judge you not that you may not be judged. But anyway,
wouldn't you want to be judged if you did something like that, though? Wouldn't you expect someone to be like, dude, why did you screw these people?
I mean, yes, I would expect it. It doesn't mean, I mean,
you earned it.
We ultimately, I'm going to get a little philosophical. Ultimately, we all do bad things. All of it. I mean, even when we do good things, none of our motivations are ever pure. And I don't think any of us really deserve much of anything. Um, I'm a big believer in grace in theological sense, and I think, I mean, I'm a Christian. I think that we all humans are sinful and imperfect, and that we can't really fix ourselves, and that the only way to resolve the shame, sin that lies at the core of our nature is grace, is forgiveness. So all of that to say, yeah, Paul Van Angelen did a pretty shitty thing, but
Some
I
might
don't.
say the worst.
And it's honestly, and like thinking about it is honestly kind of funny. But I'm not gonna sit here and harp on him
No,
forever
I'm
and
not.
ever
Just
because
anytime I think of summer
yeah,
festivals, I like to just Google
and
him to see how his
and
life's
and
going.
and no one is irredeemable. He may learn from this mistake and go on to do good things.
He may have a promising
So
career as a fry cook at Burger King.
and I honestly I hope for that. I don't hope for anyone to be punished. I hope for redemption, because I know if I was held accountable for every bad thing I've ever done, I'd be screwed. So
Moving on.
continuing,
Yes, continuing.
more recordings. Navona Records put out some new July releases. Navona is an imprint of Karma, by the way, who's partners with SEI. If you didn't know,
That's
lots
the
of
desktop
uh,
on the deck over there. This is three.
Navona
Yeah,
Records.
see? You made
Lots
it
of good
transfer.
albums. I mean, they have them up here, and they release new music every month. I want to give a plug to a new record coming out on this label from a composer named Ingrid Stulzel. I hope I pronounced her name. It's German. I know I pronounced her first name. Um, Ingrid Stulzel is a composer who I know because she came to uh, the St. Murray's Composition Intensive that I just went to in July, and she was one of the guest composers there. I haven't heard this entire album yet, but I have listened to the title track, "The Glorious Nothings," and it's a beautiful piece. So I highly recommend checking this out. Ingrid Stoltz's new album and all in Avona.
Yeah, there's
Speaking of which, while we have time,
stuff.
I'm just gonna give a plug to that program. St. Mary's Composition Intensive. Those of you out there, is a really great program. It's
Well, really quick, instead of just
mhm.
giving like an opinion either way, just why don't you give kind of like in I'd say like a quick 3 minute format, just like
Well, that's
what
what I was
was the
about. That's what I was
process?
about to do. Basically, talk
Okay,
about
yeah,
it.
just in 3 minutes or less, like
So
how
I
was
was
it?
like, it basically it's it's very pedagogically based. There's essentially four cycles that you go through, where each composer, two faculty composers and two guest composers, give a presentation on a certain aspect of music, use their own musical example that they want to talk about. The faculty composer Zaman gave a presentation on text in music, like using text as music, not just text setting music. The other faculty composer, Joshua Marquez, gave a presentation on musical punctuation, and Ingrid Stiltsel gave a presentation on creating expectations in music, and the other guest composer, Evan Chambers, who teaches at the Michigan, gave a presentation on creating musical tension in the modal music. And it was called The Buzz and the Pull, and he used the concept of sound vibrations and how they interact as a way to build tension in one musical
Kind of
line.
like how sound designers do for movies.
Yeah. Um, and it was very interesting. It's called the composition intensive because it is an intensive. You're supposed to write something based on each presentation, and then you have a master class where you talk about your music. We had a guest ensemble that talked about writing for the ensemble and then had readings of our sketches. It's not the kind of a program where you're expected to finish a piece and have it recorded and such. It's more educationally based and more based in really honing your composition. I felt like I learned a lot of stuff.
So overall,
Mm-hmm.
like who would you place this as? Like if you were to look at like if you were to say, okay, if you fit this category, you need to go. Like what category would you say would best fit? So basically, out of the stages of your compositional career to date, was this possibly the most useful time for you to go, or hey man, if I would have done this 2 years ago, it would have increased my composition career
I think it
tenfold?
would
Or
have been useful either way. I
well, I mean,
mean,
like when would have been most useful? So, like, is it more like would you say that it is something that is more, I'd say, undergraduate focused? Would you say it is, oh, if you're a grad student, this is for you, or hey, this is for mostly professionals? I know that because I'm familiar with the program. I applied and was accepted. I unfortunately couldn't go because I had other things scheduled. But I mean, overall, like, where do you feel benefits the most?
I don't I don't I think it more depends on your particular skill set and where you're at in your education because if you if you've already studied a lot of these things we're talking about, then maybe it wouldn't be as useful to study those things. But I most of the time they're not really talking about things that you learn about in typical regular music class. I mean, it's a lot of compositional process stuff that really doesn't get talked about a lot in your typical school setting, and I wish got talked about more. So I think it's
Well,
ultimately
it's been
going to.
talked about exactly one poser
Mhm.
forum sessions.
It's ultimately gonna depend on who is teaching, who the guest composers are that year, and what they decide to talk about. Because if you're, if you're, I don't know, you have a degree in electroacoustic music, and there's a festival that's like intro to electroacoustic music. No matter how good it is, you're not going
Right.
to find much benefit from it because you already know that. But I felt like I would have benefited from this if I went during undergrad. I benefited from it a lot now, and I feel like if I went, in a couple of years, I probably benefited well. So I
But in
don't think
general,
it's a
would you say maybe, okay, the earlier the better, just because that way, okay, you increase your odds of having the maximum exposure type thing? Or is it maybe, hey, maybe you should stock up some stuff before you go there?
no. I mean, you need to have some knowledge. Probably not go as a freshman, but
Well,
most
yeah.
of the people there were juniors and seniors or master's students. And there were a couple doctoral students. There were maybe one sophomore. So yeah, probably after your freshman sophomore year, so that you have the compositional knowledge to hang with what they're talking about. But I wouldn't really place it. I don't think it's a matter of where you are in your.
Right.
I think it was helpful for me, and I think everybody else who was there felt like
Okay.
whatever stage they were.
That seems to fit most kind of intensive formats that
Yeah,
I'm familiar with. The one exception being that most of them are a bit more intensive. That use the pun, but I mean they're a bit more intense just in that you're expected to, hey, every third day of this intensive, we're gonna have readings followed by a performance.
hmm
You need to have something on like four of the six things,
right.
and that's how a lot of them are run. And personally,
hmm
I like that because it challenges me to think in new ways. So like if I sit there and it's like, okay, you need to do this with like didgeridoo or something, now I'm sitting there like, learning didgeridoo in 2 days. Like, so I like that stuff personally, just because it pushes me a lot. But there's definitely a benefit to this too. But overall, 10 out of 10 would recommend to a friend.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, and it's very affordable for a composition program. It's about tuition's about $650, and there are plenty of affordable housing options on campus.
Well, one of the
So
things that like kind of like whenever you go to conferences and all that, one of the things that's really beneficial to do is if you, for instance, like let's say me and you had both decided that we were both going to the intensive,
yeah,
we could very cheaply, especially because like for me, for instance, I have a lot of like travel connections like that. It's really easy to get really cheap hotels, and that way,
yeah, but you don't want to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks. That's ultimately going to be a
I
lot
would.
more expensive than staying on campus. I mean, it
Well,
may not,
actually,
maybe not
no, it
everywhere.
depends. It
This
depends.
place, it's $30 a night to stay on campus. It's definitely cheaper. And I stayed in host housing. It was only $150.
For me, I could never do host housing, and it's just because I feel like I have invaded, number one, and number two, I know I have just odd work habits, and I do not want to.
Yeah, that's I just come
Trust me, even when you don't make noise, you make noise.
in.
my wife has informed me of that. Like,
Yeah, I do recommend this to people. And it's every summer.
and there's affordable ways to do all of them. Like I mentioned, I mean, you can do the host housing. If you know someone that's good at traveling, speak with them because they might know of, hey, yeah, there's this one hotel that's like half a mile further that is literally half the cost, but it's just as cheap as staying on campus. Might as well do that, especially because sometimes you. But anyways, that's just my little tidbit on that. Thank you for sharing your experience with that. I think that it's a good thing overall, and I'm glad that you did it. I'm a little sad that I couldn't do it, but at the same time, it's like, my spot went to someone else that needed.
Right, and you got to go on vacation to San
It was well needed.
Yes.
It was only my second vacation ever in my life, so I have needed to vacation. And as my wife likes to joke, I don't vacation. I'm trying to fix that.
Sure don't.
How would you know that?
Because Ashley has given me the rundown on how you vacation. I know from Ashley.
It's not that I don't want to. It's the
What?
fact that
I'm in
I
my
try
hotel
to
room for a couple hours. I'd better get some work done.
It's because I don't like falling behind with things like email.
I've done that too, but most of the time that kind of stuff happens when it's like last semester somebody died. And I gotta go to Florida for the
That's
funeral.
not a vacation.
And it's not a vacation.
That's
but
traveling.
It's traveling, and I'm like, I gotta keep writing because it's in the middle of the semester. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Plug for that. And Zach, I think you have some technology stuff you wanted to talk about.
There's actually not bulk, but more just in quantity. There's several little tidbits. First of all, Max 8 next month. The latest thing that they have released is that it's going to have a brand new console feature, which basically is just going to help you debug your patches a lot more easily. So someone like Jacob, who is much less versed in Max than I am, can sit there and much easier just figure out, oh, this is why the patch doesn't work, because it's invalid.
To be clear, because not everybody listening knows about Max, and this confusion has come up multiple times. We're talking about MAX, the programming.
Well, I said Max 8. Right. I didn't say Mac
But
OS.
some people will still.
Okay.
Not Max, as in the
if anyone,
of Mac.
No, if anyone's talking about technology and is talking about Mac as in the Apple product as a good thing, they don't know what they're talking about. And it's getting worse and worse as we go. So
But just wanted to clarify. Continue talking.
Okay. So
keep going.
So Max 8 in September, and so the console is a huge thing that's going to help a lot of more novice users, even intermediate, build more complex patches and troubleshoot them without having to bog down people like me with like, oh, Zach, this is completely broken, and I'm just sitting there like, dude, it took me 5 seconds to figure out. You spent 5 hours. What's wrong with you? So it'll save a lot of people that, and honestly, it'll just help with workflow management. That's one of the biggest things. That, and they have officially finished the assignment tool, so you can take any old controller you have lying around, and just as long as it's a MIDI controller, plug it in, and then as long as it's initialized, you can just assign it. You don't have to do special patching and assigning anymore. You can just do it by object, no extra wiring needed. That's going to be awesome, but it also completely outdates a personal patch I made called Easy MIDI. So yeah, I finished that like literally 6 months ago.
Capitalist overlords are one-upping you.
Yeah, my capitalist overlords. I don't know if I would call Cycling 74 capitalist overlords. They're like the most generous company. I mean, if you bought Max 7 anytime since last November, you get Max 8 for free. Find another company that does that.
I'm trying to. So should I wait? I haven't bought. I'm meaning to buy Max this semester. Should I wait until Max 8 comes out? Or should I buy Max 7?
Just get Max 7.
Okay.
It'll automatically update.
And it'll automatically update. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would just get that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Windows did that with Windows 10.
Okay, accept that. That was a huge anomaly, though.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also because they want to push the unified OS. My bad. The unified operating system. Right. Xbox, computer, phone, tablets, all that.
Yeah.
So anyways, then the next bit is Avid Pro Tools. There's an update, but is there anything good? Well, let's check the Pro Tools website.
This is the Zach hates on Avid segment of the program.
I'm not completely hating. I use Pro Tools almost every day. Okay, so this is the beginning of the features list. Oh, that's the top. Wait, that's the bottom.
Search to access the. Is this up on the screen?
Yeah.
We have this up. Search to access the plugins and buses. I mean, that's useful, I guess. Speed up multi-item menu selection. Edit audio in the group. So it's like
it was just what a bunch of plugins used to do. And they're plugins that a lot of power users, such as myself, have been using anyways.
So it's very it's like
this is the equivalent of Sibelius 7.2, which basically said, oh, look, he added 7 new menu items to the ribbon. At least 7.5 had the updated sound libraries, which are still glorious by my opinion. But this is Sibelius 7.2 all over again. I mean, that's all I see. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean,
so
like, anyways,
it's a little update. It's not a big update.
It's a baby update.
So don't get too excited. In other words.
And then also, I finally got my hands officially on Dorico 2, or 2.0 rather. Either way, I got my hands on it finally, and I really love it. It's basically the same thing, except now it's completely feature complete. So anybody that was like, oh, they don't have my specific niche feature that I use to like script didgeridoo musicals for like cowboys out in the Alps or something. That was like the weirdest thing.
There is a didgeridoo concerto.
I know, but you get the idea.
I've talked about this before.
Yes, you have. Yes. So like anybody that had like these really fringe cases for like, oh, I'll never switch until they have that. There's officially no reason. Like there's officially no thing that Dorico, or sorry, there's no thing that Sibelius or Finale can do that Dorico cannot. The only program that has anything over Dorico right now is Lilypad, and that's only for the fact that you can do circle notation.
And Lilypad is, to my knowledge, more of an engraving software.
And no one uses Lilypad.
Which I mean, if you write by hand like I do, and then notation, I mean.
I mean, if you want to write concentric circle music, sure. But yeah, so overall, it's wonderful. I liked playing around in it. Unfortunately, my Dorico stick is being a little wonky right now. I traveled. So I downloaded a patch. I've got to fix it later. I was gonna try and demo some of it on screen, but either way, it's really good. I totally recommend it, and I finally got it because it's like, yay, I can play around on the free version for 32 days until I can buy the full version in a month.
You know, one of the interesting things about the St. Mary's composition is that almost everybody. There were very few Sibelius users there. A couple people talked to me about. I'm thinking about switching to Sibelius, and I was like,
no, switch to Dorico. No, switch to Dorico. Dorico is objectively better because it's not even an opinion; it's just fact.
Like I think all your opinions are
wrong. I have a lot of opinions that I know are very unpopular opinions. Like, trust me, I am aware.
Being unpopular doesn't make something not true. But anyway.
True. Anyways, so then one last thing. This is kind of a mixture of kind of a personal plug and also kind of a professional kind of courtesy thing. But so I've been working all this summer on. Well, actually, technically, I've been working on this for about 2 years at this point. But I've been working with the Davidovsky synchronism. And for those that don't know what these are, Mario Davidovsky, composer, still alive and kicking. He's very old, but he's still kicking. And he wrote these pieces that were meant to be full integrations of cello and the tape, or flute and the tape, etc., etc., etc. There's one for chorus, one for piano, one for percussion.
There's a guitar one.
There is a guitar one that I'm still trying to find a good copy of. Because I'm kind of thinking about that for New Century.
When you do, tell me because I want to play it.
I know.
At some point, I mean, when I get time to learn it. But
yeah. Well, either way, so these are very important pieces, and whenever we performed them a couple years ago, we performed Synchronisms number 3, I believe it was, for cello, and it was really broken. Like the tape was just really, there were outright parts missing from the tape. It was nearly impossible to get my hands on the tape part. The score was easy enough to find, but the tape part had just been kind of nearly lost to history. And They also accidentally sent me the master, like the master CD that they use, because they're like, "Oh, we didn't realize that we didn't send you this. We'll send you this. This hasn't sold a copy in years, anyways." So basically, at that point, I was very concerned and brought this up to my professor, Dr. Lamb. He's like, "Well, you're putting this into Max 7, anyways, so why not just, just try and save it and all that stuff, and you can go ahead and edit it up in Pro Tools because I don't like all those pops and clicks." So I went in and as I've done for all these now, I've gone through all the first 6 synchronisms. I have now gotten rid of all the blips and the tears
Yeah.
in the tape, gaps. I've gotten rid of random ramping that wasn't supposed to be there, and it's pretty obvious whenever you look at it in Pro Tools, like whether something was intentional or a mistake. And I've gotten rid of all the kind of tears from the tape because basically the tapes were old and they decayed, and literal tears were happening in the tape
Yeah.
before they transferred to CD. So I did that, and then I actually imported everything into a Max program that I've developed that automatically cues for you the entire Davidovsky synchronisms as you play, with rehearsal markings and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I ended up doing this now as a directed study officially this summer. Finalize the project,
Get
even though
some
I've been
credit
working
out
on
of
it
it.
because I've put in honestly the equivalent of like 10 class credits on the past two
Yeah.
years. I'm only getting 3 for it. Kind of criminal, but either way.
Mhm.
So basically, I've done all this work, and now, Dr. Kirthanasis, our electronic music professor here, he actually is having me finalize the thing first for the class, and then he wants me to revisit because it turns out there's a lot of people in the electronic music interested in the
Yeah.
project
And
because these are really
Mhm.
important parts of the history of electronic music, and we were this close to losing a couple of them
Oh
forever.
yeah. And if you even do a cursory study of the electronic music, like we did in my 20th century class in undergrad, you remember this,
Yeah,
like we spend like 1 or 2 class periods briefly going over stuff. We talk about Davidovsky. We
yeah,
talk about the synchronisms. They're really important. Yeah.
yeah. And these early ones, 1 through 6, are the ones
Mhm.
that I mean, number 6 and number 5 are like really popular, so they aren't really in danger. But
Mhm.
1 through 4, oh my goodness,
Well, and
so in
I'm
danger.
interested in tenor chords because
Yes,
guitar.
guitar.
Um,
But no, so this has actually turned out really cool. So something that I did just as part of my assistantship turned into a massive personal project, turned
mhm.
into a class credit for me, and is now turning into a really important professional research endeavor. And I'll be posting it on my professional website once it's finalized here in a week or so. Because the class technically ends on Friday, but I'll be finalizing it past that.
Right.
And then after that, I'll be submitting you know, article to a couple journals,
Mhm.
and I'm going to try and get the news out there that hey, University of Oklahoma, we have synchronisms. We have a program that will play the first 6 for you if you have the sheet music for it.
Mhm.
Nice, simple, easy to use. Even people that haven't ever played with tape before have said this is the best patch ever because all you got to do is tap at each point. You don't have to stop the tape like you would have to in the past. It
Mhm.
just automatically stops as okay, 1 minute 59 seconds in, I am stopping, and then you just
Right.
tap it to go.
Mhm.
And it makes it really easy to rehearse and all that. So yeah, that's something I'm quite proud of, and also just kind of another little thing of you never know what you're going to discover whenever you're doing these kind of projects or working for a professor, things like that. I mean, no one thought that, oh wow, these tapes are really messy until
Mhm.
I until Dr. Lamb asked me, man, this recording you gave me was really bad at the tape part. I'm like, oh, that's just the tape part. And that's how this all started.
Zach, I think you deserve a high five for this. This will be
Yeah.
Composer Talk High Five. Good job.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're interested in the Davidovsky synchronisms and playing them, get in touch with Zach because he'll hit you up,
I've
man.
got the best copy of them. It was a pain in the butt to get these scores, though. I'll tell you what. Like, it was a pain. Not to mention, the first set of scores they sent me were literally left in the rain.
The rain and they got wet. Yeah.
They were unreadable.
Great job,
Yeah.
UPS.
I
Or
think
just post
FedEx
it
delivered.
it was FedEx. Good
I
job,
don't know.
FedEx.
Someone delivered it.
Um,
I'd have to look at the original.
but
Anyway,
anyway,
so that's
yeah.
something I'm really proud of. So yeah, hit us up on that. But now, finally, into some discussion topics.
Which one of these do you want to talk about?
I think the first one's really quick.
Okay.
I'd like to just
Okay.
discuss that because it's about that time. Wouldn't
Yeah,
you agree?
we're getting to
Okay.
that time. So our first discussion topic is how to as we're going back into the school year very soon in a couple of weeks.
My
How do
last
you
school year ever.
how do you balance personal and school-driven compositions? Um, so
You want
you
to start?
you don't. um, I've okay.
I mean,
This is
I know you, and that's fair.
I can talk about my experience because it's going to be different in everybody's experience.
Right.
And you'll talk yours too. In my experience, I've been lucky enough to have composition professors both here at OU and in undergrad who are very flexible with what you write and basically wanted you. It's like you write what you feel led to write, and we work on honing your compositional skills as you move through your own composition. So I haven't had to worry as much. Oh, I want to write this personally, but I got to do this for school. Um, I have a lot of things going around in my head all the time. So there's a backlog and there's wanting to do things and not having to finish something else first. But I haven't felt that there's a huge issue with balancing um, compositions that I want to do for myself and compositions that I'm doing because I easy to integrate. This semester for me is going to be a little different because I'm starting lessons with Dr. Karathanasis, our electronic music professor person, and that's number one. I'm going to want to continue writing acoustic music while I'm doing that
And you might want to do some
right and some because I like writing acoustic music and I have
because you may or may not get a commission
right,
out of it instead of 20.
and I have a lot of stuff going on in my head.
Yeah.
And number two, the electronic music because it's something that's new to me is probably going to have to be a little more systematic in instruction than than my acoustic composition lessons. Where I mean, I know how to do it, and we're working with the stuff I bring in. So that's something that I'm going to have to deal with. Which when you're doing things that are as completely different, I think, as
Yeah.
electronic and acoustic music,
It's only different at the beginning, though.
it's a little less. I mean, and I talked to this with Dr. Lamb last semester, and he basically told me, yeah, they're very different things. It's very easy to separate them in your brain and two different streams going on. It's just a time management. You go ahead, you talk about this. That's all basically all I have to say. I mean,
Well, in general, because I've always kind of been like, I'll just say slightly ahead of the curve as far as like the projects I complete. So that part of me makes it to where my composition professors have always, kind of let me do my own thing, but they at the same time have, occasionally whenever it's just like, oh, Zach, you've been like a whole 3 weeks since you've improved, to shove you into a corner and see what you'll do. So occasionally I'll get something like, oh, well, you haven't done this yet. You should try that.
yeah.
And that's really the only time that I struggle with the balance because I'll be told, oh, well, you haven't, like, for instance, didn't write a percussion piece in grad
Mm-hmm.
school. What's wrong with you? So I had to write that. And at the same time, I was trying to pump out, I believe it was my first electronic piece. So I was in two very foreign lands at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. And so that was highly interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, overall, as far as balancing, I mean, in general, your composition professors are going to want you to improve your composition.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where, like, let's just say, for instance, Jacob were to write like 5 string pieces in a row.
Yeah.
He might have
Dr. Lamb would
someone.
probably say something.
Yeah, he'd probably be like, yeah, so what's wrong with the flute?
Yeah, so you're not well, number one. You're never going to get your string quartets performed.
That'd be number one.
Right for wins.
And then they'll get performed, maybe. No, but in general, though, I think I think that's a good way to approach it. Just kind of work on what you need, but however, your composition professor will kind of steer you if it's like, oh, you really should do this because your portfolio has this giant hole
and
in
some
it.
people, I mean, probably some people listening do have work in a university setting where there's a little more of a strict set of expectations for what you're
Well, not
supposed
really
to do.
expectations. It's more just kind of. It's actually kind of like with the undergrads here. Like
Yeah.
first semester, everyone here writes a piece for
Yeah,
solo instrument and piano.
yeah, but it also depends on where you go. Like
Yeah.
some place, and I feel like this is becoming less common in university education. That the trend now is to more work with the student where they're at and let their compositional voice develop. But there are still teachers out there who have more stringent expectations of this is what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to do this set of things. So if you do work in that environment, I mean, balancing that and what you want to do personally, I mean, it's like balancing anything. Um,
Well, but for me
but
on that point though, I mean, I kind of question if that's really the direction that composition pedagogy should have gone. Because yes, I agree that okay, if you sit there and for 6 years have someone stringently tell you what to write,
mhm.
probably not good. But when you're a freshman, sophomore, I think it would be a good idea to sit there and be like, okay, well maybe okay, here I'm going to tell you what to write. Obviously, develop your compositional voice, but
Mhm.
like for instance, how I have my composition structure set for
Mhm.
undergraduate is the first 2 years I give them not strict, but I give them kind of signposts to write for. Like, okay, I want you to write brass quintet in this style,
Mhm.
and then after that, okay, I want you to write a string quartet this style, and then
Mhm.
after that, I want you to do a woodwind trio in this style, just to kind of like get their feet
I
wet,
think
introduce them to different avenues, and then as soon as they start their junior year, or as soon as they finish those
mhm.
pieces, if they finish those pieces in a semester, sweet.
Yeah.
But if if all fails, this first day of their junior year, it is you do what you want. Because at that point, I've introduced them to everything. There's no chance of having those, I'll just say, potholes in
Yeah.
your portfolio.
Mhm.
And I've kind of accomplished my compositional goals with it.
Yeah.
That's at least the way I approach it.
I
And
I think
I think
I
there's a
think there
point to it.
I think there's a balance. I mean, I think I got a lot from, for example, my experience at the intensive this past month, where it was more. Here's you have a presentation and you have these concepts that you need to incorporate into this sketch, and I think that's very useful because it's focusing you. I mean, it's forcing you to think about music in a different way that you're used to. I I think that method you're talking about is useful to a degree. However, I would replace style with concept or process because I think that right
I
in
think
such and
that's what
such
I meant.
style. Okay,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
My
and
brain's
and
fried from
yeah,
typing this report.
and 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 I think it's worth mentioning because some professors, like, some some pedagogues have done this in the past, and I think right in this style is kind of a dead end because ultimately you're never going to have to do you're never going to have to go if you write a piece in the style of Prokofiev.
Right. Now, there is
You're
a place for that,
mhm,
I will say. In a student's first semester, teaching them a couple of the very basic, such
mhm,
as I need you to write a Mozart style quartet. Just that because that way it's like, okay, I can look at a Mozart quartet and I
mhm.
can apply that to my own melody and things like that, because that way it just gets them, it gets their feet wet.
I don't think so.
I think for the
I
first
do think
piece,
here's something that there was a lecturer who came to who they had a theory roundtable
right?
last semester. I'm trying to remember what this person's name was. She was one
Let's
of the
just talk about
speakers
what she
there.
talked about.
She talked about how she teaches the composition exercises for undergrad students in theory classes. It's not and I think this is a really good idea. It's not write in this style. It's not write a piece in the style of Mozart. It's incorporate these compositional concepts that Mozart used. So you're not
Okay.
necessarily going to sound like Mozart, but you're learning from what a composer like Mozart or Bach or Schoenberg.
So like instead of saying oh in the style of Mozart,
Mhm,
using the same,
mhm,
left hand piano that he would have
mhm.
used in his first eight sonata.
Yeah, like write a piece. It's like write a piano piece. Use Alberti bass and use a couple of these harmonic structures. Or it's something like
Okay, I can see the benefit to that
in
too. I think it's
undergrad
two sides of the same
in
coin.
undergrad we did some of this. I mean, we had projects where we it was right in the style of Mozart or right in the style of Bach, but then we also had projects in theory where it was write a piece using the octatonic scale. You did this too because we went write a piece using the 12 tone method, and I personally like the that more concept based thing better because I think that rather than learning to write in a specific style, which isn't really necessary, you're learning to incorporate concepts into your music, which is what we do as composers. I mean, we go if you go listen to Mozart and study one of his pieces, you're not trying to figure out how to write like Mozart. You're trying to figure out, you know, what makes this tick. You know, what's good about this. You know, how do I incorporate some of the ideas Mozart used to make my own. So that's how I think about it, and I think there's value in that. I think there's value in a little more structure to the compositional pedagogy in conjunction with the more unstructured
Right.
write what you want, because I don't think you
There's
ever
there's
you
validity
yeah
to that.
I don't think you ever want to tell a student you have to do this and this and this and this is what your composition lessons are going to be,
Well,
but
no, you never do
right.
that. But again, for me at least,
Mm-hmm.
I see it
Yeah.
as, because there's a reason why people did that for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
It works.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why Nadia Boulanger was really good at teaching composition without being a good composer herself. She was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic at teaching just the basic fundamentals because she never actually taught composition, despite teaching all
and
these
and it's
composers.
and it's
She
almost like
only taught them, okay, this Bach thing? You're going to do that Bach thing, but with your
mm-hmm.
own melody.
And it's almost like it would be helpful to have separate courses where you have your structured composition course, which can be done in a class setting, and
And then
you
you have like the
and then
mentorship
and
one.
then you have your lessons, which is write what you want, and then we'll work with that, which is, I mean,
I mean, for me though,
yeah.
like I would see it more as you have like kind of the same lesson, but you just kind of have different things. Kind of like, if
Hmm.
you're in a high school math class,
Yeah.
you don't just sit there and get lectured at and then do the homework, go home, finish the homework, come in, get lectured at again. You don't do that.
Yeah.
You have the homework bit, and then in the middle you might have like the weekly quiz bit, and then you might
Right.
have,
Right.
okay, we're gonna have like the in-class
Hmm.
discussion bit, things like
With
that. So I mean, you have all these parallel
hmm
streams that reinforce each other. So I think that having maybe something like that could be the
I
best
think
way.
so, but at that point the problem is how much can you fit into an hour composition lesson every.
Well, and see, that's why my method, I
Hmm.
think, will be kind of the solution to that, because for me, my students are going to have a 1 hour composition time.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm going to have office hours at the tail end of the week
Hmm.
and at the beginning of the week that are designated as
Hmm.
composer office hours. And during that time, my students may, come in and see me and just be like, hey, I need some extra advice with this XYZ because my
Right.
personal project's going off the rails, or hey, I can't figure out
Hmm.
why Mozart did it this way, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. And
Or
that's
yeah.
why I'm gonna kind of structure it that way, because
Hmm.
that way it's, at least I feel, the better
There
balance.
and there's also the option of incorporating some of that systematic instruction into the composer's forum, that you have at
Which you
your
don't have much
institution.
control over. So
Hmm.
that's
Well, it
why I would
depends.
love for that to be a
It,
thing.
it it depends. It depends who's running the program.
I mean, if I'm running the program, yeah,
Yeah,
composers forum would be
but
really
but
different.
but then
I'd run
there
it like Texas.
but then there's the how much can you fit into composers forum, which
I mean, UNT
ultimately.
Denton, they meet twice a week for
Hmm.
composers forum,
Yeah.
plus
Good.
lessons.
You could also meet twice a week for lessons. So it's ultimately
Well, no,
I
not
think
twice a week for lessons. Like one lesson a week, two forums a week.
one lesson, two forums,
Yeah.
right? It. I mean, I think how do I fit everything in that I want to teach them is a problem that every teacher has. I've had that in the tutoring and teaching I've done. I'm sure you've had that with your experience leading New Century and in the education class.
New
Um,
Century, not as much. Music notation, yes.
yeah.
Because the way I
Well.
currently have it structured, I tackle personal problems in the last 3 weeks.
Hmm.
And as is usual, the last week people will come to me with
New
personal
Century is
problems.
different because it's an ensemble, but at the same time, even last semester there was a lot of things. There were a lot of things you wanted to do that we didn't end up getting to because there just wasn't time, and we had snow days and not snow days, tornado days, and
Yeah, we had
yeah,
those two
we had
tornado days that just wrecked the schedule.
yeah.
I'm planning for 13 spring this.
Mhm.
I'm
That
not even
way,
kidding.
that way, if
Yeah,
you have extra time, then it's great. I have extra time.
exactly. I'm
Right.
planning 13 weeks this
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um. But yeah, I think I think we ultimately that it's a matter of balance because I do think that I really appreciate the approach where you take control of your own writing process, but there's also a real benefit which
To
to
being told,
cha-
hey, you need to do
to
this. brass
And
quintet with
it's a
this.
matter of challenging your student. You haven't done this before. You haven't thought about music in this way before. Get out of your box.
Well, no, even little
Right.
things like
Mm-hmm.
one of the more significant times with that was whenever I
Mm-hmm.
just started a piece with just solo saxophone hanging on to a note for about 10 seconds or so, and then the piece
Mm-hmm.
started. Then Dr. Lang was like, I like that. Really echoes what happens
Mm-hmm.
in the rest of the piece. And then he's like, you know what? You need to listen to these pieces, and you need to extend that sax line into a minute and a half. We can only use that pitch.
Mm-hmm.
That was a real challenge.
Oh yeah, writing one note music. It's
No,
hard.
but making the one note music make sense for the multi note music to follow.
Right.
That's the part that
Right.
stinks. Because single
Mm-hmm.
note, it's just like, dude, come up with some nice rhythms, some nice extended techniques. That would be
Mm-hmm.
great. But to make it make sense what came after, that's where I was sitting there like, why, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Lang?
Yeah.
Why?
And
I know that you like me, but sometimes I doubt it when you do this kind of
that's the
stuff.
kind of thing that I think is really helpful for you. Like get out of that box.
Oh,
You
it
know.
was wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
you
love
learn
that you did
so
it.
much when you have to think out of the paradigm that you have tried to get yourself that you've gotten yourself into. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, so in general, I mean, the balance, sometimes it can be an interesting, I guess, process to try and balance them. But honestly, in the end, it really comes down to your particular program. But overall, I would say, I mean, you should do what you need to for the school driven stuff. Like if you're assigned to write a brass quintet over the course of 2 weeks, write the brass quintet. It doesn't necessarily have to be your grand magnet, but just have it there for you. Prove that you can. And then you can put your heart and soul into that didgeridoo concerto that you. I don't know why I'm talking
I don't know either.
didgeridoo, 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 didgeridoo. Anyways, we did have another discussion topic, but I think we'll
Yeah,
save that
I
for
don't
next
think we're
week.
gonna get to politics today. We'll get to politics next week.
No, but I just felt like that was a more relevant one for this week because people are starting to
Well,
head
in
back
any
to school.
time this month, really.
Well,
But
yeah, but some schools start next week.
that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this week was best. Anyways, so that's gonna be it for today. Cutting out a couple minutes early, but we're slackers like. We're composers. We're born to slack. Anyways, so yeah, be sure to tune in next time. Not next week, next time. We'll talk about should composers explore politics in
Yes.
music,
Yes.
and we'll probably talk about it more than likely.
Probably, unless we have
Unless some,
which
unless
is
like
unlikely.
Sibelius says, "Hey, we're actually going to release a real update that fixes Sibelius or something."
Or Sibelius decides to become a
Avid dismantles Sibelius brand.
or no, Sibelius is transitioning to like a recipe making software.
Oh,
like it helps you cook, and create your own recipes.
Sibelius.
Which then gets into the question: is a score the music? Is that the composition, or is it a recipe? For
Okay, goodbye.
Oh, all right. Send us your hate mail. We love to hear from you, especially the negative stuff. And we will see you next week, or
don't listen to
hopefully
him.
next week.
Probably next week. Neither of us are going anywhere.
Bye.
And then hit the AKG button.
Wow.
Second roll.